Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a historical movie review and I'll be having a look at a Viking saga, The Darkest Day, also known as DRAKKAR. Now this movie is actually meant to be based on historical events that actually took place. As to how accurate this movie actually is, only Odin knows. So let's just review the movie based on what it tells us. It's a very small scale film and it's based on these kind of Viking sort of tribes that are coming over to sort of the UK and essentially invading, and they kind of wiped out this monastery and sort of in search of this kind of particular sort of religious book and they believe it will kind of give them dominion over the people of England ultimately. And these two sort of monks have kind of run away trying to hide this book in hopes of getting to this other kind of like much larger monastery in hopes of protecting it. And these sort of Viking sort of warriors ultimately are sort of chasing them down. On the way, these kind of two monks basically stumble across this kind of like wandering knight who's kind of like loyal to the Christians ultimately, and kind of a girl who is more of a kind of almost like pagan like. Anyway, and ultimately it's a chase film. These sort of Viking warriors chasing after the small sort of band of heroes, so to speak, or protagonists, and sort of obviously getting through their numbers somewhat. And really that's it. There's not a hell of a lot of plot in this movie, I have to say. It really is a very, as I say, relatively small cast. The Vikings aren't actually a huge amount of them, and it really is just kind of these Vikings chasing this small group of protagonists across the countryside ultimately, and a few sort of face-offs along the way. So there's not a lot actually to it, and it kind of gets a little bit slow in places, I have to say. That's going to be the main criticism here. It's obviously not going to be a particularly high budget movie. I will say this, the cinematography and the way it's actually shot actually does look quite good. It's actually shot quite well, apart from maybe the battle scenes. Like they use a lot of kind of close-up shots and it's very sort of shaky camera a lot of the time. So you can't often see what's going on. Maybe that's kind of trying to hide the sort of choreography and things like that. But it does look good for the most part in kind of the majority of the sort of dialogue scenes, the kind of wandering around the woods and that sort of thing. So it looks very pretty. The cinematography is pretty good. The acting, so-so. It's not bad acting necessarily, but I think there are some moments where certain characters maybe try and oversell it a little bit and trying to make it sort of feel this kind of dramatic role that they're sort of trying to feel this all. It kind of feels a little bit sort of maybe overacted here and there with certain characters at least. It's certainly not a bad film, but there's not a lot to it, and even though it is apparently based on a true story, the plot is extremely slight. There's very little to it, so it's not a particularly memorable film once you've watched it. I mean, it's okay and it's enjoyable to a certain point. The battle scenes, there's only I think two very small scale battle scenes. Don't be sort of thinking it's going to be this kind of big epic sort of war film that you kind of maybe the cover portrays somewhere. It really isn't. I mean, it ends up being just literally a handful of kind of, sort of good guys, so to speak, and maybe sort of 10 Vikings or so sort of pursuing them. That's really it. It's kind of forgettable at the end of the day. It's certainly maybe not badly made, probably for the sort of relatively meagre budget that's kind of got, but ultimately you probably won't remember this movie in the next day. I'm going to score this movie 4.5. It's certainly not a bad film, but it's very unmemorable. So have you seen it? What do you think of it? Leave me a comment and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.